Kristen C. Blinn is a professor of communication studies at SUNY Oneonta and affiliate faculty in women's and gender studies, with a multidisciplinary academic background that includes a PhD in communication from the University of South Florida, an MS in thanatology, an MA in medical anthropology from the University of Amsterdam, and a BA from Goddard College. Her scholarship centers on contemplative communication, mindful listening, cultural sustainability, arts-based inquiry, and ethnographic approaches, and she teaches courses ranging from intercultural communication and conflict, to end-of-life communication and mindful listening. Blinn's recent publications include works on near-death experience, more than human perspectives on mortality, and communication approaches to assessment and pop culture yoga, alongside broader engagement as a mindfulness educator and social justice-focused communication scholar. Tanali Hernuk is a field recordist, sound designer, and radio and podcast producer, whose work centers on documenting the sonic environments of the Rainbow family of living light and other community-based cultural spaces. He grew up in the Kettle Moraine region of Wisconsin and is the creator of Muddy Boots, a long-running sound collage and field recording program blending archival music, ambient sound, and spoken word elements. His extensive archive of more than 2 decades of Rainbow family field recordings led to the book Gathering Sounds, Field Recording with the Rainbow Family and its follow-up volume. In addition to producing audio works, he contributes to archival and folkloric projects and participates in community-focused initiatives that support grassroots arts and cultural preservation. This 2017 chapter, How Rainbow Gatherings Work, Disorganization in Small Acts, presents an autoethnographic dialogue between Kristen C. Blinn and Tanali Hernuk that explains how rainbow gatherings function as non-commercial, leaderless, temporary communities organized through small acts of voluntary work, oral tradition, and consensus-based decision-making. Drawing on their long-term involvement, they describe Rainbow as an evolving cultural performance and university of life, where kitchens, water lines, sanitation systems, healthcare, CALM, information centers, and seed camp infrastructure are constructed collectively, funded by donations rather than commerce. They emphasize that participation, doing dishes, digging latrines, hauling food and water, cooking for hundreds, cleaning up, and following RAP 107 guidelines, is central to belonging and to the gathering's leave no trace ethos. The chapter also details the Vision Council process that selects future sites through often messy, time-consuming consensus, highlighting tensions between idealized non-hierarchical governance and the practical authority of those who do the doing, such as scouts and workers. Throughout, the authors argue that Rainbow works because it is constituted communicatively through shared stories, everyday labor framed as work is love made visible, and ongoing teaching and learning that enable thousands of people to briefly live cooperatively in the forest. The authors take a moment to introduce themselves so readers understand their personal connections to rainbow gatherings. Kristen explains that she is a communication professor who first attended a rainbow gathering in the mid-1990s, stepped away for several years, and later returned as part of a long-term research project. Her interest grew from both the experience of being there and her desire to understand how people create community through communication and shared practices. Tanali shares that he began attending rainbow gatherings in the 1990s as well, eventually becoming deeply involved in the practical side of how these gatherings function. He spent years working on essential tasks such as kitchens, scouting locations, laying water lines, and building infrastructure. What drew him in was the unique environment of the gatherings, which also inspired him to begin field recording the sounds of rainbow, work he continued for decades. Together, they explained that their different experiences, Kristen as a researcher focused on communication, and Tanali as a long-term participant embedded in the day-to-day work, give them complementary perspectives. These personal histories make clear why they chose to write the chapter in a conversational style, and why they see storytelling and shared labor as central to understanding how rainbow gatherings operate. Framing autoethnography and communication explains that the authors are using autoethnography, which basically means telling personal stories to help make sense of a larger culture. They draw on ideas from Bachner and Ellis, who say that communication itself, especially real conversations, can be a powerful way to understand and analyze lived experience. The authors treat stories about rainbow gatherings as both individual memories and cultural explanations, showing how people create meaning together through the act of sharing those stories. They also highlight that simple conversation is one of the main ways rainbow communities organize themselves, making talk not just a method for writing the chapter, but also a core part of how the gatherings actually function. Rainbow gatherings as oral tradition and cultural narrative explains that rainbow gatherings function largely through oral tradition, meaning people learn how things work by listening to others, rather than reading rules or manuals. Newcomers pick up everything, from how to navigate the space to how the community functions, by hearing stories, observing others, and being shown what to do. This emphasis on spoken knowledge reflects a culture built on shared experience rather than written instructions. Much of what keeps a gathering running is passed along person to person. People learn how to cook in communal kitchens, dig and maintain latrines, fetch and purify water, sing long-standing rainbow songs, play familiar drum rhythms, and handle the basic tasks needed to live temporarily in the woods. These skills are taught informally, often through demonstration or conversation, making the gathering feel like a living classroom where knowledge is constantly shared and renewed. The authors also describe rainbow as something much bigger than a simple event. Depending on who you ask, it can be a community, a spiritual gathering, a family, a festival, a social experiment, a form of performance, or even a temporary village. At the same time, it is often described as a non-organization, because there are no official leaders or formal structures. Instead, the gathering emerges from the combined actions and stories of the people who participate. Because of this fluid and evolving nature, it is difficult to pin rainbow down with a single label. Any fixed definition fails to capture its complexity, and the authors emphasize that this resistance to being neatly defined is part of what makes rainbow what it is. The gathering changes depending on the people who attend, the stories they tell, and the ways they contribute, making it both personal and collective at the same time. What rainbow is and how it works explains that the rainbow family is a loose, informal collective of people who gather once a year on public land in the United States to create a temporary community based on peace, cooperation, and shared responsibility. There is no formal membership, no official leadership, and no organization behind it, just people who show up and work together to build a functioning, short-term village in the woods. The gathering is open to anyone, and its purpose is to live together in a way that contrasts with everyday society. A big part of Rainbow's identity is that it is non-commercial and leaderless. No one is in charge, nothing is for sale, and decisions are made through consensus, an approach where people talk through issues until they find agreement. This process can be slow and imperfect, but it reflects the group's belief in equality and shared decision-making. Instead of rules, people rely on customs, communication, and cooperation to keep things running. Life at the gathering depends entirely on donations and voluntary contributions. There is no entry fee or ticket, and instead of exchanging money, people donate food, supplies, skills, time, and energy. The magic hat, passed around at mealtimes, collects money used to buy essentials like bulk food, water filters, medical supplies, and tools. This donation-based system is meant to show that a large group of people can take care of each other without commercial transactions. All the essential infrastructure, kitchens, water lines, campsites, latrines, fire pits, and medical support, is created and maintained by volunteers. People build kitchens from logs and tarps, haul cooking equipment into remote areas, tap springs for clean water, set up dishwashing stations, dig safe latrines, create signs, and organize communal spaces. Nothing is prearranged. Everything exists because someone chose to pitch in. The result is a fully functioning, temporary settlement built through collective effort. Participation is at the heart of how Rainbow works, and one of the community's favorite sayings is, "If you have a belly button, you are family." This means everyone is welcome, but it also means everyone is expected to contribute in some way. Whether it's washing dishes, carrying water, cooking a meal, or helping someone find their way, every action helps sustain the gathering. The idea is that community is created not by rules or leaders, but by the willingness of ordinary people to show up, work together, and take care of each other. Work, love, and participation focuses on the idea that Rainbow gatherings run on the belief that work is love made visible, meaning that people show care for one another through the practical tasks they willingly take on. Instead of viewing work as a burden, members see it as a meaningful way to contribute to the well-being of the community. Everyday chores become expressions of kindness, connection, and shared responsibility rather than obligations imposed by authority. The authors describe many examples of the kinds of labor that keep the gathering functioning. People wash huge piles of dishes in makeshift forest kitchens, haul heavy bags of food and sacks of flour over long distances, chop and carry firewood, and cook meals for hundreds or even thousands. These tasks are physically demanding, but participants do them because they want to support the temporary village they've helped build. This work becomes part of the culture, shaping the experience of being at Rainbow. An important part of this shared work system is its donation-based economy. Instead of selling food or charging fees, the community relies on the magic hat, a pot passed around during meals that collects voluntary monetary contributions. The money is used to buy essentials like food, water filters, medical supplies, and tools. People donate what they can, not because it's required, but because they want to help sustain the gathering and ensure everyone's needs are met. For newcomers, this can be confusing at first. Many first-time attendees struggle to understand a system where food is free, no one is charging for services, and volunteers do almost everything. Coming from a society shaped by commercial transactions, the idea of a community running entirely on goodwill, shared labor, and donations can feel unfamiliar or even suspicious. But over time, most newcomers adjust and begin to appreciate how the system works. To drive home the importance of personal responsibility, the authors recount the well-known Rainbow story, Whose Job Is It? The story humorously shows how tasks go undone when everyone assumes someone else will handle them. Its message is simple. If something needs doing, you should step up and do it. This attitude is at the heart of participation at Rainbow. Instead of waiting for instructions or for a leader to appear, people take initiative, understanding that the gathering only works because individuals choose to act with care and commitment. Why People Gather explains that people come to Rainbow gatherings for many meaningful reasons, as described in Garrick Beck's list. These reasons include wanting to experience cooperation, express love, enjoy a sense of freedom, and care for the earth. People also gather to teach and learn from one another, to celebrate life, to build community, and to practice trust. Together, these motivations reflect a desire to step into a way of living that feels more connected and humane than everyday life often allows. The authors emphasize that the gathering becomes a place where thousands of people can learn practical skills, share knowledge, and experience a different kind of social environment. Instead of relying on formal systems or institutions, people learn directly from each other through hands-on work, conversation, and shared experiences. This transforms the gathering into a kind of open classroom where anyone can teach, anyone can learn, and everyone is encouraged to participate. Finally, Rainbow is described as an ongoing experiment in communal living and collective care. It shows what life could look like when people work together voluntarily and take responsibility for one another without money, leaders, or rigid rules. The gathering becomes a temporary but powerful example of how cooperation and kindness can create a functioning community, giving participants a taste of alternative possibilities for how society might operate. The RAP 107 and Gathering Ethics section introduces RAP 107, a well-known set of guidelines within the Rainbow community that functions more like shared principles than strict rules. RAP 107 lays out the basic expectations for how people should treat the land, the water, and one another during a gathering. It is not enforced by any authority but is passed along through conversation and practice, helping everyone understand how the community works and how to participate responsibly. A major part of RAP 107 focuses on environmental care and the leave no trace ethic. Participants are encouraged to walk gently, avoid damaging living plants, and protect sensitive areas like springs and streams. Proper latrines must be dug far away from water sources, and all waste needs to be covered with ashes or lime to prevent contamination and flies. These guidelines help keep the land clean and safe for both the community and the surrounding ecosystem. The guidelines also include practical instructions for health and safety. Everyone is expected to wash their hands regularly, clean their dishes properly, and store food and personal items in ways that prevent illness. Fire safety is emphasized as well. Each camp must have water and a shovel on hand, and all fires must be fully extinguished before people leave. Recycling and composting are encouraged, and trash must be packed out rather than left behind. These practices allow thousands of people to live together in the woods without creating hazardous conditions. RAP 107 also outlines expected behaviors that help preserve the spirit of the gathering. Alcohol use is discouraged because it can disrupt the peaceful atmosphere, and buying or selling goods is considered inappropriate since commerce goes against rainbow values. People are asked not to take photos or videos without permission out of respect for privacy. These norms help create a sense of trust and mutual respect among participants who come from many different backgrounds. Finally, the guidelines highlight the importance of active participation. Everyone is encouraged to help in whatever way they can, whether by working in a kitchen, greeting newcomers at welcome home, assisting with peacekeeping through Shanti Sena, or staying after the gathering to help clean up. RAP 107 reminds people that there is no staff or leadership team. Rainbow exists only because those who attend choose to contribute. This shared responsibility is central to how the community functions and to the cooperative spirit that defines the gathering. Infrastructure and Seed Camp explains that Seed Camp is the early phase of the Rainbow Gathering, taking place from mid-June until July 1st, when the first volunteers arrive on the land to begin building the temporary community. Seed Camp creates the foundation for everything that follows, and it is during this period that the essential layout and rhythm of the gathering begin to take shape. Only a relatively small group is present, but their work determines how smoothly the larger event will function once thousands of people arrive. The earliest tasks are highly practical. Volunteers flag trails so newcomers won't get lost in the forest, dig the first latrines so sanitation is in place from the start, and tap natural springs to establish clean water sources. Laying water lines, often stretching long distances, is a major job, since reliable water access is essential for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. All of these chores require coordination, physical effort, and a clear understanding of the land. During Seed Camp, people also begin constructing the main structures that the gathering depends on. Crews build the large communal kitchens that will eventually feed thousands, often assembling them from fallen timber and donated supplies. They raise the Granola Funk Theater, a central performing space, set up I&O, where people can get directions and updates, and establish Calm, the gathering's volunteer medical and wellness station. These structures form the backbone of the temporary community. Seed Camp also involves communication with the outside world. Participants typically attend town hall meetings in nearby communities to explain what the gathering is, address concerns, and maintain good relationships with local residents. These meetings help ease tensions, provide transparency, and offer reassurance that the gathering is committed to respecting the land and cooperating with local authorities. Finally, the authors note that the energy of Seed Camp strongly influences the entire gathering. The attitudes, cooperation, and momentum established by the early volunteers set a tone that others will follow when they arrive. If Seed Camp is well organized, positive, and collaborative, the gathering itself tends to flow more smoothly. In this way, the small group who shows up first helps shape the culture, mood, and success of the much larger event that follows. Water, Kitchens, and Logistics describes the enormous amount of behind-the-scenes work required to provide water, food, and basic living needs for thousands of people in the middle of the forest. One of the biggest challenges is creating a reliable water system. Volunteers locate high-elevation springs, tap them, and then run long PVC pipelines, sometimes stretching for a mile, to bring clean water into the gathering. Filtration systems are brought in and assembled so that everyone has access to safe drinking water. All of this is done by participants who donate their time, labor, and equipment. Food preparation is just as important, and the authors describe the communal kitchens as the heart of the gathering. These kitchens serve hundreds or even thousands of meals a day, all on a donation basis. There is no central catering service. Instead, volunteers cook together and feed anyone who shows up. This shared food culture creates a sense of community and connection, with kitchens becoming natural meeting places where people work together and build relationships. The kitchens themselves are impressive structures built entirely on site. Volunteers construct them from fallen trees, tarps, rope, and other materials brought in by hand. Many kitchens include large mud ovens, creative cooking setups, and dishwashing stations carved into the landscape. These rustic facilities are functional, durable, and surprisingly efficient, demonstrating the community's creativity and resourcefulness. Each kitchen also develops its own personality and culture. Some specialize in certain foods or experiences. Tea Time, for example, offers warm drinks and conversation. Love and Ovens focuses on baked goods from handmade ovens, and Popcorner is known for bringing in enormous amounts of popcorn. These kitchens become beloved parts of the gathering, each offering something unique and welcoming. All of this requires intense physical labor. Volunteers haul heavy gear, such as giant cooking pots, propane tanks, tools, and sometimes 50-pound sacks of flour, over long forest trails. They carry lumber, set up supply tents, and trek back and forth between water sources and kitchen sites. Nothing is delivered or pre-built. Everything exists because someone personally carried it in and assembled it. This shared effort not only makes the gathering possible but also strengthens the sense of community through hard work and cooperation. Communication infrastructure explains that rainbow gatherings have their own informal communication system to keep everything running smoothly, even without leaders or formal organization. Different groups, like INFO, the Information Center, Calm, the medical area, Shanti Sena, the volunteer peacekeepers, and the kitchens, stay connected using walkie-talkies. This allows people across the large forested area to share updates quickly, organize help, and respond to changing needs. The walkie-talkie network becomes especially important during emergencies. If someone gets injured, has a medical issue, or needs evacuation, Calm can immediately contact others for assistance. The same system helps coordinate responses to weather problems, missing people, or anything else that requires fast action. Even though the gathering is temporary and built from scratch, this communication setup helps keep everyone safe and informed. In addition to radios, the gathering relies on simple, low-tech forms of communication. Hand-painted signs point the way to kitchens, trails, and supply areas. Volunteers shout messages through the forest when help is needed, and communal phrases like "We love you" help create a welcoming atmosphere while passing along group energy and announcements. Together, these methods form a flexible, people-powered communication network that keeps thousands of participants connected. July 4th, Silence and Prayer for Peace describes the July 4th silence as the most important ritual of the entire rainbow gathering. It is the main ceremonial event that brings everyone together with the shared intention of promoting peace. While many parts of the gathering are loosely organized, this ritual is taken very seriously and is one of the few traditions that remains consistent from year to year. From sunrise until noon, tens of thousands of people across the entire site remain completely silent. No music, no talking, no drumming, just quiet. The silence is meant to create a moment of collective reflection, unity, and peaceful intention. People spread out across the meadows and woods, meditating, sitting quietly, or simply being still as the morning unfolds. For many, this shared quiet is a powerful reminder of the gathering's deeper purpose beyond celebration and community life. At noon, the silence is broken by the children's parade. All the kids at the gathering walk into the main meadow, often dressed in colorful clothes and holding homemade banners. Their arrival symbolizes hope, renewal, and future generations. As they enter, the crowd responds with a large sustained Om, a deep communal sound that fills the meadow as people lift their voices together for the first time that day. The authors describe this ceremony as one of the most emotionally powerful experiences at Rainbow. The combination of the long silence, the joyful arrival of the children, and the shared Om creates a sense of connection that many participants say stays with them long after the gathering ends. It is one of the few experiences where thousands of people act in complete unison without leaders or direction, guided only by shared tradition. Because it draws so many people, the July 4th ritual is also the moment of peak attendance at the gathering. Some participants come specifically for this event, seeing it as the heart of Rainbow's message about peace, cooperation, and collective intention. The ceremony serves as a symbolic expression of what the gathering strives to represent: unity, harmony with others, and the belief that peaceful community is possible, even if only temporarily. Cleanup and restoration describes the cleanup and restoration period that begins after most people leave the gathering and lasts for several weeks. A much smaller group of volunteers stays behind to return the land to its original condition. Even though the main event is over, this phase is treated as an essential part of the gathering, because Rainbow emphasizes leaving the site better than it was found. The work is detailed and labor-intensive. Volunteers sort trash, separate recyclables, and collect microtrash, which includes tiny scraps like bits of foil, bottle caps, and food wrappers. They dismantle all the kitchens, ovens, dish lines, and structures built during the gathering, and they reseed trails and disturbed areas so vegetation can grow back. Every fire pit is cleaned out, and the ground is returned as closely as possible to its natural state. This hands-on restoration demonstrates the community's commitment to environmental respect. One of the biggest challenges is dealing with abandoned camps. Some participants leave tents, tarps, clothing, or gear behind, intentionally or not, and the cleanup crew must remove or repurpose all of it. These leftovers create extra work and slow down the restoration process, but the volunteers handle them because the land must be fully cleared before the site can heal. Toward the end of this phase, Rainbow volunteers walk the site with local resource officials, often from the Forest Service or land management agencies, to ensure that everything has been properly cleaned and restored. This walkthrough helps maintain trust between Rainbow and local authorities by showing that the community takes responsibility for its impact. When the land is finally cleared, reseeded, and approved by officials, the Rainbow cycle is considered complete. The final volunteers leave only after the site has fully returned to a natural state, symbolizing the end of one gathering and the beginning of preparation for the next. Vision Council is the yearly meeting where Rainbow participants decide the general area for the next year's U.S. gathering. It is usually held on July 7th, after most of the main events have taken place. Anyone can attend. There is no formal membership or voting list. The idea is that the decision about where to gather next should come from the people who care enough to show up, sit in circle, and talk it through. The structure, in theory, is simple. People sit in a large talking circle, and a sacred object such as a feather or stone is passed around. Only the person holding this object speaks, and everyone else listens without interrupting. The intention is to give each person a chance to share their thoughts about where the gathering should be held, why, and what they imagine for the coming year. This format is meant to reflect Rainbow's values of equality, patience, and respectful listening. In practice, the process is long, messy, and often non-linear. Rather than sticking strictly to the question of where to meet next, people sometimes use their speaking time to tell personal stories, share spiritual experiences, or wander off into unrelated topics. As a result, the circle can take hours or even days to move forward. It can be hard to keep track of who has spoken, who is waiting, and where the group stands. This can be frustrating for those who want a clear decision. There are also practical issues. Attendance can change from day to day, with new people joining while others drop out, so the group discussing the decision is not always consistent. Some people who speak passionately about a location have never scouted land or may not understand what it takes to host thousands of people safely. Others are strongly attached to particular regions or states for emotional or personal reasons, which can make compromise difficult and prolong disagreements. This creates a tension between the ideal of consensus and the realities of planning. In principle, consensus means everyone agrees or at least can live with the decision, without winners and losers. In practice, reaching consensus may come down to who has the stamina to stay in circle the longest, or who pushes the hardest for their preference. The chapter points out that while the Vision Council process reflects Rainbow's non-hierarchical values, it can also expose the limits of pure consensus when practical needs are at stake. To choose a viable location, Scouts and experienced participants stress a few key criteria. The site must have reliable water, ideally from springs at higher elevations that can feed gravity-driven water lines. It needs a large meadow that can hold the main circle and especially the July 4th peace gathering. There must also be enough parking or nearby road access to handle all the vehicles and buses bringing people in. If a place lacks any of these elements, it may be beautiful but not realistic for a major gathering. After Vision Council settles on a general region or state, the process continues through follow-up councils. At Thanksgiving Council, people from that region and interested Rainbow participants meet to discuss possible sites, share information, and begin planning. Later, Spring Council is held closer to the actual gathering season, where Scouts present specific candidate sites they have visited. Only after much driving, walking, and checking land conditions, Does the group reach consensus on a final site and move into seed camp, turning the Vision Council's decision into a concrete plan? In the closing reflections, the authors return to the idea that rainbow gatherings are built out of countless small actions: washing dishes, cooking food, digging latrines, carrying water, picking up trash, comforting someone, or sharing a song. None of these acts alone is spectacular, but together they create the entire experience of the gathering. Rainbow is presented as something that doesn't exist on paper or in an organization chart. It only becomes real when people show up and do these everyday tasks for one another. They describe rainbow as a kind of temporary utopia, not in the sense that it is perfect, but in the sense that it shows what is possible when people choose cooperation over competition. For a brief time, thousands of people live in the woods without buying and selling, without bosses, and without formal leaders. This short-lived community gives participants a glimpse of a different way of organizing life, reminding them that other social arrangements are possible, even if they are fragile and imperfect. The authors highlight how central mutual care, creativity, kindness, and shared responsibility are to making this experiment work. People look after each other's basic needs, create art and music, improvise solutions to problems, and step up when something needs doing. There is no guarantee that anyone will help, yet help keeps appearing because participants internalize the idea that they are responsible for the well-being of the whole. This attitude is what turns a loose crowd into an actual community. To capture the spirit of this way of living, they end with a poem by Diamond Dave that distills the rainbow ethos into a simple formula: take what you need, give what you can. The poem traces how strangers can become friends, friends can become family, and family can become a moving community when people keep offering what they are able to give. It's a reminder that generosity and participation can build a movement without formal structures, just through repeated, everyday acts. Finally, the authors suggest that the end of the chapter is not really an end, but a beginning. By closing with reflection and poetry rather than a neat conclusion, they invite readers to carry the questions and possibilities of rainbow into their own lives. The chapter finishes by suggesting that the real point is not just to understand how rainbow works, but to consider how similar small acts of love, work, and cooperation might reshape other communities beyond the forest. Arriving at a rainbow gathering feels like walking into a hand-built, temporary village tucked deep in the forest. Trails are marked with flags, tarps stretch between trees, and smoke rises from cooking fires drifting across open meadows where people wander in an easy, unhurried way. In the early morning, someone might be crouched over a set of muddy dish buckets, scrubbing giant pots, while others drift by with casual greetings on their way to a kitchen for a simple bowl of oatmeal served in whatever cup they brought. Water lines run like improvised arteries through the woods. Volunteers locate mountain springs, tap them, and run long stretches of PVC pipe downhill so clean water can reach the gathering. At the spigots, people fill bottles, wash up, and talk barefoot in the damp earth. Nearby, latrines are dug far from water sources to keep the area healthy and safe. Everything in this place is handmade: the trails, the dish lines, the kitchens, the gathering points. Nothing is pre-built and nothing is bought. The kitchens feel like the beating heart of the gathering. Built from fallen timber, rope, tarps, and mud ovens sculpted by hand, they serve hundreds or thousands of meals a day. Each kitchen has its own personality: tea time, love-in ovens, popcorner, and volunteers carry in every bag of flour, crate of vegetables, and chunk of firewood. Cooking, chopping, serving, and cleaning are expressions of care rather than assigned jobs. People learn songs, rhythms, and forest living skills from each other while waiting in line or helping prepare food. Life at the gathering unfolds in encounters and stories: weddings under tarps, drum circles deep into the night, spontaneous theater, wandering musicians, and long conversations beside fire pits. The ethos that work is love made visible guides everything. If a dish line is backed up, someone steps in. If a kitchen needs firewood, someone hauls it. There are no leaders, no schedules, and no formal roles, just constant cooperative effort stitched together by conversation and generosity. On the morning of July 4th, the entire gathering shifts into a different kind of energy. From dawn until noon, thousands of people sit or lie quietly across the meadow and surrounding hills in complete silence. No music, no cheering, no shouting, just the collective stillness of a temporary city holding its breath. When the children's parade finally enters the meadow at midday, the silence breaks into cheers, drumming, laughter, and a long, powerful ohm that rolls across the field. For many, it is the emotional center of the gathering. After the crowds leave, a much smaller group remains for cleanup, sometimes for weeks. They dismantle kitchens and ovens, collect every piece of trash and microtrash, reseed trampled paths, and restore the land as closely as possible to how it was found. Abandoned camps must be packed out, fire pits must be erased, and the forest floor must be cleaned by hand. Eventually, volunteers walk the land with local officials to confirm that the temporary city has disappeared. Within this world, Vision Council becomes a slower, more contemplative moment. People sit in a wide circle, passing a feather or stone, each person speaking without interruption about where the next gathering should be. The conversation drifts, loops, and wanders, full of stories and hopes as much as practical suggestions. It may take hours or days, but eventually a loose consensus emerges, a direction for where the next temporary village will rise.